Blackballed. Blackballed. Blackballed.
What is up, everybody? My name is James D. Fiore, and this is Blackballed. So, sometimes you find out something and you're like, oh my God. And that happened, I guess it would be like last Friday when we were doing Casual Fridays, and or maybe it was the next day. I was all on shrooms. All I remember is being on shrooms and sending my next guest a track that I had done. And finding out then that he was a hip hop head. I just did a quick segment with him, and I was totally honest with him. For the last 4 hours, so I had a guest drop out, and so it happens all the time, and sometimes you can replace them, and then sometimes you can't. And so for the last 4 hours, I was trying to replace a guest, and all of a sudden I was just like, wait a second. When we talked about hip hop on his show, it was like, oh my God, we could talk about this for hours, and I was like, hey, and the light bulb went above my head, which is why my next guest today is Ray Routh. How you doing, buddy?
Good. How are you? Thanks
Good.
for having
From
me.
the Who's Got Next podcast, I should say. But yeah, is there a better cultural icebreaker than when two hip hop heads find each other?
No,
in a sea of rockers and electronic music fans, you know, like.
And I find it really stupid that I never caught on that you were a hip hop guy, because I watch your show and I'm listening to your intro again today, and I'm like, it's all the signs are there that you're a hip hop dude, but yeah, and then
Except
it's always
fashion and the I guess the way I talk. I don't know the way I talk. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I always, I don't know. I just always knew you as the political guy, right? So I never we don't even, anytime you and I are on a show together, music never really becomes a subject, right? It's always Ford this or Rogan that or whatever. So
or we talk about a lot, how we don't talk about Christianity.
Yes, that. But when you sent me the two tracks, and like I said, I was telling you on my show, my wife and I listened because she's a big hip hop head too, and we were like, I was like, this is amazing. And then when you came on my show, my whole intentions was just to ask you about your tracks. What was your inspiration? You start dropping names, and next thing I know, we're just dissecting hip hop. So that's what happens when two hip hop heads get together.
Yeah, well, you know what? It also, really, I'm not doing some sort of launch or anything. So I'm making a 32 track album. It's gonna grow probably by the time I actually get to a studio. I want to take like a week and find a studio, and I actually found one. I have a sort of like, whenever you can make it happen, we'll see if we can make it happen on our end, and come on down. Like, it's one of those situations, but it's so far away, and I don't do it. But I have like 32 tracks right now, and it's really just meant for my kids. Like, I'd release it because just to see what would happen or whatever, but I wouldn't like put a marketing plan behind it and a budget. I would just release the music. Like I just do it like that.
Well,
maybe I'd release 10, and if people like it, then I'll find a way to make money off the rest of it. No,
well, I like the two you sent me, so I would sell the shit out of it for you. And what I like about you is, in these are two tracks that you sent me. The one thing I didn't say on my show, which I probably should have, is you can tell when a lyricist writes genuine lyrics to when it's bullshit. I know
like
a guy,
laundry list MCs, we used to call them.
Yeah, like that. They just write words, and like you swear, but you don't swear as a filler. Like, there's people. I knew this hip hop artist out of Rexdale. His name was Georgie Porgy. Sick lyricist.
Hey, do you guys like De La Soul and Tribe Called Quest? I know exactly who Georgie Porgy is, man.
You know Georgie Porgy. So he didn't swear. He was all about clean hip hop, and he used to always tell me that if you have to say fuck in a hip hop song, and I swore when I rap, and he used to always say to me, if you got to say fuck, it's because you don't know what to say. He's like, so you just throw fuck in there.
Look what he was selling in Kensington Market. I used to live right on the top of Kensington Market. I would see him like. I saw Georgie Porgy for like a period of 3 years, probably like 4 times a week, just running into him.
That's
because he was always on the corner of Kensington or walking around with a bag full of CDs.
Selling his CDs.
Selling his CD, and his line was, do you guys like a hip hop artists like Tribe Called Quest and De La Soul? And,
Yes.
and so that makes sense because they didn't really swear all that much. They did here and there, but it was hardly at all. You know,
We're trying to prove that hip hop is clean. We're trying to prove that people can flow without sweat. I remember his whole pitch too, right? Say all 6'8" of them or whatever he was, just going on and stuff. Yeah. So him and I used to talk about hip hop all the time. And what I liked about your stuff, and my wife and I were both saying this, is when you swore, you didn't say it as a filler. Like there's guys that are spitting tracks, and I'm not gonna rap for you, but there's guys that are spitting tracks, and all of a sudden they just say fuck for the sake of it. You know what I mean? And it's like you didn't know how to end that. You didn't know how to transition from that lyric to the next, so you just put fuck because that was the break, right? And that's what Georgia Porter used to tell me all the time. Lyricists that just swear to swear don't know how to transition, or that just swear the end or scream the N-word.
It's a crutch.
Yeah, it is. It's exactly what it is.
Yeah, and a lot of rappers have that. A lot of rappers have crutches that are like different. Like, because when I'm on the mic, is sort of like freestyle's crutch, right? Like when you're trying to freestyle, like, you know, that you end up saying stuff like that. But yeah, I never really liked this fucking, you know, like those kinds of whatevers. Yeah, it has to mean something. Otherwise, what's the point? Like, it could be the frustration of what you're saying. It doesn't have to be like a literal thing, or it could be the literal thing, right? You know, it's just, you know, but it should be used sparingly, I think. Right?
Well, it could be used sparingly, or use Ice Cube's a prime example of a guy who doesn't use it sparingly, uses it a lot, but you know he doesn't use swearing as a crutch. Like it's a part of his lyric, right?
Sometimes for some rappers, the N-word is a crutch.
Oh, it's a huge crutch. Yeah. I
know it's weird two white guys saying this, but it's I feel like we have a guest pass at least to be able to say this, because like I don't know about you, but I know about you. Like now I do. Like we're both hip hop heads. Like you can't, you know. And there are artists like I remember Too Short. I felt like used it as a crutch.
I'll tell you a guy who who swore as a crutch, used that word as a crutch. He's probably known as one of the top 10 rappers of all time. I love him. God bless his soul. Love his music. DMX used crutches all the time.
He's a top 10 for you, really?
In my opinion, he's a top 10. I love DMX.
By the way, I should have said before, I kind of hate that. I have a new, it's really annoying actually, because it's annoying not only to me, but to others. I have a new mantra-ish kind of thing in my head. It's not actually a mantra, but I think of it all the time, where people try to get you to tell you what your favorite thing is. Oh, yeah. Because I'm like, why do we have to rank everything? Why can't things just be different from one another, and we don't really put them in rankings, so that I can go to a different fucking restaurant without anyone asking, did you like it as much as this place? And it's just like, it was different. Well, you know, I feel that way about rappers too. Like I'm not a huge fan of Jin, but you know, who's the best MC? Ain't no best. Top 5 dead or alive, there ain't no best. Like, and it's like, yes, that's true.
Well, and my wife will often tell you that if you ask whatever day, you could ask me the same question every day. If you ask me what's your favorite song of all time, I will give you a different answer every single day. Like, it all just depends on the mood I'm in. If I'm in a really poppy mood, this is going to sound weird based on the conversation we're having, but one of the guys that I love, because to me, it's just when I'm in a happy mood, I love Flow Rider. No, Flow Rider is my guy. When I'm like in a peppy pop, like he's that. I call him pop hip hop. You know what I mean? Like it's like a pop rap.
I interviewed Flow Rider in Miami once.
Did you?
On camera for and it's in my documentary actually too. He was doing a CD release party in 2009.
Is he a good guy? I want to believe he's a good guy.
I mean, it's hard to tell from just like a quick conversation, but his mom was there, right? I met his mom. Flavor Flav was there. I met him. I interviewed him. So it was interesting because I didn't like his music at all. Right. Yeah. And it was just when digital sales were really starting to like happen for artists a little bit. And, you know, and he had sold like in his first week, like 400,000 copies or something. So it was like, he was a big artist at the time, but hey, we all have, well, I don't know if I do, but no, I'm sure I do. I'm sure I have some. Who do I like that no one else seems to like?
Well, when you're thinking about, I'll tell you a quick story about Flow Rider.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
So the last concert I went to before COVID was Flow Rider, TLC, and Nelly. And I really only wanted to go there for...
I'm sorry.
I only wanted to go there for Flow Rider. Like, I really didn't want to see anybody else, you know. And I couldn't get anybody to go with me. Nobody would go to the... I finally convinced my wife to come
Oh, that's
and
so
my
funny.
and my sister. So I finally convinced my wife. I was calling my boys and I was like, "Yo, you want?" I'm like, "I'll buy the tickets." They're like, "No." They're like, "That's the corniest shit I ever heard. We're not going to that concert." And the funniest part was Flo Rida opened the show and banged out his set. And I looked at my wife. I'm like, "Okay, we can go
I
home."
hate Nelly almost more than Nelly would definitely be in my top 5 for rappers I hate the most. But
So and Nelly's set, he played about 45 seconds of every song, and then it was weird because he would just abruptly end it. It wasn't like he'd rap it and kind of like flow into it or go into another song. Like he'd do 45 seconds of song and abruptly end it and then talk to the crowd for 5 minutes. And then who's been with me since the beginning? And then 45 seconds of a song and then abruptly stop. And I'm just like,
maybe he was tired or something, because that people used to like hide. Like I was at, I don't want to talk, whatever, it happened. So Maestro Fresh West, like in 2010 maybe or something like that, was at the CBC and I was covering it. And he did Let Your Backbone Slide, and his mic men were Shad and Chaos. And it was because he couldn't do it anymore, because it's really hard to like get the cadence right, especially. And if you get the cadence right and you get the vocals right and the flow right and the lyrics right, it's a pretty hard song to do when you're like, however old he was at the time, 45 or something like that. I could do it. I'm just gonna say it for the record, but this, if you're out of practice though, and I've been on an Olympian schedule over the last, like, since the pandemic started. I do an hour a day of either writing or rhyming out loud. Like, I live in the middle of nowhere, so I can just walk out of my house, walk like 10 yards. My family doesn't hear me anymore, and I can be as loud as I fucking want, and nobody hears me. Or if someone does, it's some teenager, some hick teenager fucking like 2 miles away that hears the echo, and all of a sudden I become the godfather of his hip hop journey.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
You know, but like, but yeah, it's a hard thing to do when like that's the thing that we were talking about Eminem on your podcast earlier, and about how he's like he's an interesting sort of enigma, not just because of his content, but because the things that he's doing as a 50-year-old is like, oh, that's interesting. He's as old as hip hop itself. But the thing that he does as a 50-year-old, he couldn't do or didn't do when he was in his 20s. And I find that remarkable, because when I was young, and I guess probably when you were young too, rappers had a shelf life that was not dissimilar to like great basketball players that played until they were like 38, and then they're not rappers anymore. Like, and I think it was, I don't know what it was. It was probably something record executives told them, that they wouldn't be able to, maintain an audience. But I don't know. I think Generation X consumes a lot of hip hop still, from what I understand. Like, there's a bunch of us out there that, you're an older millennial, I think, but like, Generation X, we were there when it kind of like exploded, and it's part of our culture.
Yeah, it's true. And I'm a little bit younger than you, but I am on the older millennial side. I think like by 2 or 3 years or whatever. I don't know, depending on who you talk to, the age changes. But I grew up in the thick of hip hop as well. So like, you were there for like the pioneers. You know what I mean? Like the one when it really blew up in the 80s and going to the 90s. I came in sort of the late 90s. Like the first album, I knew hip hop. Like the first album I ever owned was Naughty by Nature. That was with OPP and Ghetto Bastards.
Tretch is one of the illest MCs of all time.
Yeah, so that was one of my first introductions to hip hop. Didn't realize, and again, but even Naughty, as much as I love Naughty by Nature, and that was my first introduction, to me that was still some of that old school. It could be a little corny, like when you listen to like OPP.
I hear what you're saying in regards to the music, the instrumentals, but Tretch as a standalone MC,
phenomenal.
Oh, yes. Just crazy. Like, if he was a solo artist back then, I think like he probably, well, whatever. They had pretty good success, not even nature, but like
I'm more thrown in the instrumentals. The instrumentals was more, right. And then the da 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 da. It's like,
it sounded like you're about to go do 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 do.
It was almost like,
which is probably a Jay-Z song or something.
Probably, but so you start going through it, but I know what you're talking about, the shelf life and how they kind of transition. And I don't know how you felt, but LL changed right in the I'd say early 2000s, and when he put out, he puts out that track with J-Lo, and then he did that one song, I forget what it's called, and he's under the waterfall, and he's flexing, and he's doing this, and I just remember thinking, like, what the fuck happened?
Back to Cali.
Yeah,
Cali.
what
No, listen, LL had a really weird career, okay? So, like, when I'm Bad came out, I got Bigger and Deafer before I got Radio, and Radio was his debut album. When I got Bigger and Deafer, when I first heard I'm Bad, I still think it's dope. Like, it's one of those songs that survived the curse of sounding dated way in the future. There's parts of it that sound dated. The video is certainly dated. It's fucking absurd, right? But the song itself, like, is kind of crazy. Like if you read the lyrics, you're like, ain't nobody right now that is even touching songs like that. Because have you ever looked at like the lyric sheet of certain artists, and it's like, oh yeah, cheer. Oh yeah, cheer, like 25 times, and then like, come on, man. Like it's not even the same genre, really, right? Like
no. And we talked about that in my show, that LL was one of the guys who really changed hip hop for the better, right? The shorter songs, the cleaner lyrics, he
was a storyteller too.
He was. And his messages were,
one afternoon, realized I was in the world of cartoons. He-Man told me he beat me up because he thought that I looked like a Donald Duck. Like, and then I hung out with Spider-Man, and he's talking about the honeymooners, and he's like, and he just did all these TV. Like, he did concepts. He was a concept guy first.
Ice Cube did
hold
a lot
on.
of that.
Sorry, I wanted to give you the career kind of trajectory of LL. So he put out those two albums, and then he put out Walking with a Panther. And I think that was the one that Mama Said Knock You Out was on and stuff, and we thought that was dope. And then something happened, and he went really like, not R&B, but like for us, like raw villains of like white kids rebelling in the suburbs and hanging out with black kids, and everyone thinks that we're badasses and blah, blah. We didn't really dig R&B music, right? Like it wasn't our thing, and we were like, what's going on? Like, is it, And we weren't savvy enough marketing wise, and if we were, we didn't like it. We were our backpacks were on tight, and so a bunch of us started to hate on L, right? And I kind of had a lukewarm, like I was like, I like his old stuff, and then we went to see Gangstar at Much Music in like 1994 or something. It was when Moment of Truth came out, and I remember that everyone. So Premier is talking, and he's talking about artists that he's worked with, and he says LL Cool J's name, and they booed. They booed Cool J in this, and Cool J, and Guru and Premier, and I'm like 5 feet away, right? And Guru and Premier look at each other, and they're like, and they just they smile and they shake their heads, kind of thing, and Premier's like, don't sleep on LL. Don't sleep on LL. And the crowd still booed. Right? Now they're booing their favorite producer just for saying LL's name in a positive light. So there's something that happened. Like the heads were kind of like, well, I can't fuck with LL anymore. Like he disappointed a lot of people. Like,
well, he did, because he went from that pure hip hop lyricist. He went from that pure, and he, again, the storyteller. Similar to Ice Cube, who doesn't get a lot of credit for being a storyteller. Oh yeah,
Ice Cube is one of the greatest West Coast writers of all time. Like,
and I think people always think of him as like No Vaseline and that kind of thing, but he's a fucking. If you listen to the the
Kill
Night in the Ghetto,
Kill at Will is one of the greatest written albums by anybody. I don't really go to the crate that much, like for that kind of stuff. Like I remember when NWA came out, like we had our hands all over that shit, my friends and I. Like we sought out that stuff. I was thinking about it the other day about how hip hop touched every single aspect of my culture growing up, and I credit that to being a white kid in the suburbs, because we are like the first or second generation, and you would be like, you would be around that third, I guess. And if you take a generation as like 25 years or something like that, who, like, we didn't really have a culture. Like, I'm Italian and I'm Dutch, right? Yep. There wasn't any Italian or Dutch shit going on in my house, right? So, but in my parents' house, there was an Italian shit going on in my dad's and Dutch shit going on in my mom's. And it just, for whatever reason, wasn't passed down. I don't know why, it just wasn't. So our culture became the shit that we did. We were like inventing our culture as we went along, kind of thing. And hip hop seemed to touch all of it. I was telling someone the other day that I got into politics because of Do the Right Thing. That movie was like the greatest movie I'd ever seen, and really made me kind of like angry at first, and then it made me think and all that kind of stuff. Like, why the fuck did Mookie throw the goddamn garbage can through the window? It was a dilemma. I was like 13. I was like, I didn't understand any of it. So my introduction to politics was racial politics, and then obviously the soundtrack for that is Public Enemy's "Fight the Power," and so it touched everything. And I was a Michael Jordan guy. I used to wear flight suits or whatever. And even though Michael Jordan actually hates rap music, the brand itself was a total hip hop brand, right? Like, it was just the way it was. And then the music, and then the writing, and then it just like, it touched everything, man. Like, it touched the food that I ate, the fashion, like it just, and I was building my own culture because I didn't get any passed down to me. And I think that's what happened.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I did have culture passed out in my household, and it may have been, again, you're probably, I don't even want to say the generation before me. You're just like the age group.
I'm 10 years older
me.
than you, so you might as well say it.
Well, you're like the age group before me. You know what I mean? You're like, I don't call it generation. And you guys kind of laid down that piece, because by the time I got to say high school, the culture that we had there and the people you hung out with was all based on the music that you listened to.
Really
you had the hip hop crew, you had the punk rockers, you had the metalhead goths, you had the beboppers, and people dressed to the music that they listened to. They talked like the music they listened to. And it was all the culture, like our culture that I was ingrained in. And I'm like you, I ate up the hip hop culture, and a little bit of that spread out to a little bit of reggae and that type of thing. You know what I mean? It came in. I'm like you, I wasn't an R&B guy. Hated when hip hoppers went in, or when guys like Ja Rule, who to me was an R&B guy to the soul, who tried to come into the rap game, and you had
He's
all
another guy I never really got down with. Like, I never.
No, I hate Ja Rule.
Yeah.
Well, because he's an R&B guy who tried to become a rapper, right? Because he looked like Tupac, and Def Jam thought they could sell him as Tupac.
Just didn't like his music. Like, it's weird though, because like I know a good songwriting. I was gonna say sounds like, but I really want to say looks like, because you can't actually look at a song on paper and tell if it's a good song by words and if the music, and obviously in the structure of where the chorus is, or if there's a bridge, or if there isn't, or if it's one long verse and a fucking thing at the end, like you can just tell. And a lot of them had well written songs, but like I just wasn't like, I never really understood Lil Wayne. I never understood why people thought, and the weird thing about him is that I think his first couple albums are absolute garbage. I really do. And so I wrote him off immediately. And then Carter, someone's like, you have to listen to Carter 3. And I was like, okay. And I did. And I was like, and I walked away going, okay, I can see the skill now. I still don't really like it, but at least now I can see where people are coming from when they like him as an artist. There's a lot of cats like that. So if you're like a Nelly, well, not if you're a Nelly fan. If you're a Nelly fan, you just don't know shit. But if you're a Ja Rule fan, actually, same answer.
yeah. No, it's the same answer. It's funny because I've talked about Lil Wayne before, and I've made this comparison. I always said that Lil Wayne is the Neil Young of the rap world. He's a guy who really doesn't have any talent, but people just love him. So that's always, because Neil Young, I listen to Neil Young sing and I'm like, I just don't understand.
Well, I like some of Neil Young's music, so it's hard for me to like, but I get the joke. Like, I don't know who I would like. I would use Geddy Lee, like not as a bass player. As a bass player, apparently he's really good, but like as a singer, I don't get why people like Geddy Lee. I don't understand why a cat trapped in a trash compactor sound would actually be appealing to anybody. But so I don't.
Did you ever get into any of the like Lauryn Hills or Missy Elliott's or any of the female rappers?
I think Lauryn Hill is, if someone put a gun to my head, I'd put her in my top 5. And the reason why is because there is no artist that exists that can rap and sing as good as that individual can. And if I were to build a super group, for example, she would be on it. There's no doubt in my mind that she would be there. But I remember listening to MC Lyte, like when she was putting out new shit in the late 80s kind of thing, or early 90s and stuff. And even Queen Latifah had good shit back in the late 80s and early 90s. Like there is like, it was interesting because it was it was certainly a sexist culture, and you're at a sexist age in a sexist era, early '90s kind of stuff, and you I'm not going to say that you don't know better, and I don't mean like to the extreme, but there were songs that were like clearly very rapey, and very like misogynistic and beat up girls and stuff. And it was funny because I remember listening to the shit, but never thinking to myself, "What a great idea!" Like or being that way. Plus, I really wanted to have sex, and I know that being mean to girls wasn't really a way to like go about dating, right? Like so. But I get it. But I don't go back to that kind of music, right? And so I forget what the question what were we even talking about.
The female hip hop scene.
Oh, female hip hop, yeah. Lauryn Hill is dope. I understand behind the scenes. She's had a lot go on in her life, and I think it's obviously impacted the trajectory of her career and the amount of music that she's put out and everything. But yeah, I'd pick her over almost any rapper. It's interesting. That's why I don't like ranking. Like, how do you say yes to Lauryn Hill but no to Nas, or vice versa? Like, how do you do that?
It's true. And then you look at pioneers. Like, I think Missy Elliott's one of the pioneers in female hip hop. You know what I mean? Like, because she never really converted, right? She stayed her sort of herself, right? And where Little Kim,
she was the best rapper in Fugees.
Yeah,
she was better than Wyclef. She was better than the guy that no one knows or remembers his name, like me right now.
Yeah, I'm the same. But like, so Lil Kim, I liked when she came out, and then she got very R&B-ish. You know what I mean? Like, she moved away from the rap game, and then she's doing shit with other people. I was a big Foxy Brown fan. You know what I mean? I'm a big Foxy Brown fan.
I was a big Foxy Brown fan. I thought she was like the hottest like thing of all time. Like there is like
she kind of was. She was one. She kind of was. But
there's like a weird science. If you're a hip hop guy, there's a weird science approach to like what's the hottest thing you can think of in a woman. And for me, as a MC, I would say that a girl that can rhyme her ass off and obviously looks really fly would be kind of ideal. Like, but then I would imagine living with someone just as like punchy when we're busting balls as me, and I don't know if I'd like it or not. There's only so much of that people can take, but yeah, and in this country, Missy Me, she was like the MC Light of Canada, and that's going back a while, and yeah, I don't know, like there's a lot of good rappers that are a lot of female rappers that are dope that really get steered into the pop side of things and the sexy pop stuff, and it's kind of unfortunate because I think that they would probably really nail like not Christina Aguilera. Who am I thinking of? I always forget their names, which is probably not. It's not sexism. I just forget their names, but all of the. Like who's the one with the big giant bum and the big fingernails all the time, and she's like,
not J-Lo.
No. Yeah, like I'm talking like that still puts out stuff.
Oh,
see, this is bad.
Yeah.
Anaconda.
Oh, she's retired now.
Is she retired?
Yeah. Oh, fuck.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, no, yeah, because she's got having kids and she wants to take care of her kids. She did Bang Bang with Ariana Grande. For fuck's sakes, Nicki Minaj. Nicki Minaj. That's
right. So okay, there is. I've heard some tracks from Nicki Minaj. I don't think that they're hits. Although, what do I know? Because I don't really pay attention to what's hits nowadays. But I'm just like, the flow that she displays sometimes is relentless and is really fucking nice. The lyrics are just some of that. Some of it is crackerjacky, but some of her shit is fucking dope. So she can nail all three that you need to nail: the cadence, the flow, and the lyrics. But she's so heavily steered into pop that I don't think that people understand that she's probably a really amazing artist. I told my wife. Way before Anaconda came out, I think it was Starship was one of her big hits, and I told my wife, if this woman had a producer or came out 10 years earlier when hip hop was still a thing, I said they could have
Like she could have been the Missy Elliott of her time. Like they could have kept her on the track of rap, because I love her flow. I think she can rap great, but you're right. It's all popified, right? It's all popified.
I think I know the solution, and I'm not even kidding. So I had Classified on last week, and he just did an album called Retrospected. He just did a tour. And it was funny because I asked him, I'm like, why didn't you book any big cities? Like there was like one semi-big city. It was like fucking, I think it was Regina was the biggest city. And it was all these other enclaves, which is fine. I wasn't like, I was just confused by it. And because he's a big enough artist to do well. And it was because he didn't know how hip hop people would take to him doing an acoustic performance. And I was like, I thought that was crazy because when I was in the early 2000s, I was part of a collective of people that were in all sorts of music. It was electronic music and hip hop. Was mainly those two, but there was some rock and roll guys in there too. And, you know, it created a lot of fusion. And my act for the year that I did live shows was a dude playing guitar, my Jamaican friend Shane Forrest, Jamaican of Syrian descent, which is interesting, and me. And we would both be sitting down and he'd be playing the guitar and I'd be rhyming. And we did pretty good in the sense that like the shows always had a really good amount of people or whatever. And we put out, we didn't even put it out, but we had one album, whatever. We weren't really pursuing record deals and all that kind of stuff. We were just doing it, but we did it fairly well. And he was nervous that they wouldn't know how to receive it. And I think he found out when he sold out all of his things and then his album is being nominated for all these awards that especially older millennials and Generation X guys that grew up listening to like different types of stuff really kind of like that shit. And I think that you can reset these people that brand themselves as like sex icons like Nicki Minaj, Cardi B, or whoever, and you can turn them into you can reinvent them, and the mechanism is an unplugged show where they sit down and they show you that they're not just rappers that can shake their shit and everything, but they're MCs, and the craft is something that's important to them. And I really think it's underutilized because we're all so into the glossy, you know, I don't even know what to call it. Like I don't know the adjectives to use anymore. Like I thought they reached the pinnacle like in Christina Aguilera days with like, you know, with how far they went promoting her as a sex object. But
dirty.
It's like everybody now, except for Lorde.
But
she's probably done that too now. I don't know. You know. Like,
but I totally agree with you because, and I was looking at the chat and people were saying Cardi B, and I agree. I think Cardi B is a very talented lyricist. I kind of like
super intelligent.
But I think she's
I used to drug guys and rob them. Okay.
Yeah. But I think she's a talented lyricist. I kind of like that combination with her Hispanic background that and the accent that seeps into the rapping.
Yeah, I like her. I like her annoying voice. I've always liked the annoying voices, like Rosie Perez. I've always loved her voice.
So I think that she could be very good. But you're right. It's this new. It's weird because a lot of the male rappers today have no personality. They come out monotone. It's every song again, and I was saying this on my podcast, I always swore to God I would never be my dad, right? Who was like, oh, this fucking music today back in my day. But I listen, my kids are all into it, and some of it's good, don't get me wrong. Like there's some good music that comes out today. But I was listening with my daughter one day and I didn't realize the song changed. You know what I mean? I looked at it and I'm like, this is a long song, eh? And she's like, Dad, this is a new song. I didn't even realize the song had changed because it sounded exactly the same.
That's so funny. It's so awful, right?
Yeah. So it's for me, it was, you know, I had really had a, oh my God, I'm a dad moment at that moment when we were listening to
That's
it.
not what that is. Maybe. But I mean, I could understand being an adult in like 1990 and being like, oh, what is this? You know, because it to them, it was completely foreign, right? Like, but now it's, but when you grew up with it and you know what good rapping sounds like, there's a lot of, like it's just like it's like everything sounds like CNC Music Factory, but the 2022 version or whatever, right? Like,
that's actually. But I want to go back to your acoustic thing because you make a good point, and you actually brought that up on my podcast, and I'm going to turn it around and bring it back to here. Yeah. You know, we were talking about Eminem, and you were saying like you'd love to just see Eminem on stage with like a guitar player and a piano player and just go from an acoustic.
Just because it's always the music that's front and center, for most people. I'm the opposite. I want the lyrics to be good. There are talented singers like opera. Obviously, I don't know what the fuck they're saying, so it's the melody that obviously I listen to more than anything else. If I were to listen to opera, and I do, funny enough, on occasion when I want to reset my brain after my kids or my wife do something that makes me crazy. So, but it's like I lost track of my own thoughts. See how I put myself over the cliff? What were we just talking about? You have to do it again. I'm seeing now.
You're into the lyrics. You're into the lyrics. It's not, we were talking about Eminem doing acoustic stuff.
So seeing a performance from like it could be crazy. Like a dream lineup would be like Rakim and Eminem and Nas and fucking Lauryn Hill and all these amazing rappers, and Kendrick and J. Cole and whatever, and direct not him, and just get them all on a stage, one by one or whatever, or two at a time, and have them just sit and rhyme on a couch, on bar stools, because they'll still rhyme, like where you're like, holy fuck, look at them go. But there isn't all of the bells and whistles around the thing that I hold closest to my heart when I think of hip hop, which is the lyricism. And I think, Hamilton, stuff like that, the play that's kind of in the same universe, I think. And I think like a sit down audience watching people rap, I think there's a whole universe out there that is yet to be discovered, or at least a whole bunch of different, planets that you can place in that universe, because I love it. And it's like a cappella, it's like the appeal of a cappella are the words and the poetry. And if you add decent behind you music on it, so it's not overpowering everything, then I like it. I'm a hip hop head, but live hip hop, honestly, like 75% of it fucking sucks. Hip hop is tough to pull off live because a lot of rappers don't have good mic control when they move around. They get tired a little bit. That's why they have mic men to hit the line on the kick, or at least that's the way it was back in the day. And the performance is hard to appreciate in places like an arena if you're not, and even if you are, but if you're not really close to the stage. And in little clubs, the shouting and the mic stuff is just hard unless your system is perfectly equalized or whatever, right? Like, yeah. So I'm not a fan of live hip hop most of the time.
So I think it was probably 2004. I saw the Baby Blue Crew, which was basically Wu-Tang with Redman, and somebody else, right? But that was basically what it was, and then minus a couple guys here and there. And as I told you, like I know I'm the same as you. I don't like saying I have an all-time favorite.
Yeah.
But if you were to put a gun in my head and say you can only listen to one artist the rest of your life, for me it would be Method Man. I love Method Man. Like, it's just, he's so unique in his delivery and I love Method Man. And I have never been as impressed at a live show as I was watching Method Man live. Like, it's really, he didn't run out of breath. Like, and they had hype men on the stage, but he could have went without hype men. Like, that's what I'll say. Where Redman, who we know is the energetic guy, was exhausted a song and a half in. You could see it. Like, he was burning out.
Because of the weed.
It has to be. It has to be. But so it's funny. I was reading something a couple weeks ago. I was reading it, and it was ranking like the top 50, hip rappers of all time, or groups. It was all about hip hop, right?
Is that the Rolling Stone one?
No, it wasn't the Rolling Stone. It was like some off-brand one. But I laughed so hard because Method Man was listed 3 times. So Wu-Tang was number 3. The combination of Method Man and Redman were like number 8 or like number 9. And then Method Man was by himself at number 12. And I was like, he just listed him 3 times on the top 50 list. It's
that's hilarious. That means that someone's a big fan. But
list challenges. That's what it is. I don't know if you've ever seen the website list challenges. People actually vote. That's how it goes up and down the row. Yeah.
See, it's 2 minute when it's minute. That's a perfect example why I don't like it. Like who are these jokers voting for? Does one of these rappers have probably like some boiler room operation of bot processing, whatever? Like, and it's just too subjective. But
you know what though? If I listed the top 10, I'm on it right now. I bet you
that I'd agree.
Yeah, I don't know. Actually, it's very commercial. So number 1, Tupac. Number 2, Ice
Okay,
Cube.
you already lost me.
Number 3, Notorious B.I.G.
See,
Number
I don't put either of those rappers. Their significance in the culture is, to me, totally different from their catalog.
I agree.
Especially Biggie's. Like, you know,
I agree. They're again. That's why I said it's very commercial. Wu-Tang's up there, as you know. I totally agree with that. I love Wu-Tang.
Yeah.
NWA is there.
See, that's another one. Like their catalog is what, 2 albums? You know, like
Yeah.
really, do you count it after Ice Cube leaves? Really?
No, you can't.
You know?
They got Nas at number 6. No, yeah, number 6.
See, who's ahead of Nas? Give me the top 5. That so it's Tupac.
And it's NWA and Ice Cube. So he's got 2 spots. Wu-Tang, and then Tupac and Biggie.
See, so isn't that hilarious in a way? Because this is why I hate it. Because first of all, Wu-Tang is a collection of like a dozen artists, and then it's Nas. So you're like, I know Capadonna isn't even 10% Nas. So it's like, how do you fucking like, you know, how do you even do that? So it's weird to me. I hate it. I fucking hate it so much, the ranking thing. Like, I would rank like best West Coast top 5, best East Coast top 5, because my top 5 would be all East Coast. So it'd be difficult.
So
like,
I wanted to ask you that because you were ingrained in the hip hop culture, and I got into rap right like at the tail end of this. You know what I mean? Like, I think that when I started buying albums, like I bought Puff Daddy, All in the Family, when I'll Be Missing You came on it. So the East Coast West Coast war, right? Again, I missed. No, I'm saying no. I missed a lot of the East Coast West Coast war, right? Like it was ending as I came into it. Did that influence who you listened to? Did you get wrapped up in it? Because I know guys who are a few years older than me that were totally. I know guys who won't listen to Tupac still. I know guys who won't listen to Biggie. Like they won't listen to Tupac, Dre. They won't listen to any of the West Coast guys. And I know guys that will only listen to these. Did you get wrapped up into the East Coast West Coast stuff?
I sort of did, but it was different for me because that happened like I was already 10 years deep, right? Like I wasn't, and so my tastes were clearly East Coast, like anyways, right? Okay. There was I probably showed some immaturity or something like in when I was still in high school, where I spent like a little bit of time using offhanded remarks like "fuck West Coast music," like I probably did that like a bunch of times. But that went away pretty quickly. Like as soon as I graduated high school, probably like I never thought. Well, before that, I don't know how many years or even if it was years, but I quickly learned that was stupid because I remember thinking at the time like, but I don't want to stop liking NWA. Like, why would I do that? That seems like a really stupid thing to do. I actually like Snoop Dogg. I like I like Dre. This doesn't make any sense to me. I didn't like Too Short. And I didn't like stuff like that. Like I thought that was lame. And but yeah, and then I snapped out of that really quickly because there's a lot of good West Coast shit, right? Like it's but to have like NWA, on in a top 5 and Nas like number 6 and like Method Man on lists 3 times and stuff, it just seems too weird to me. If you take everyone as a solo artist, you can't do Wu-Tang as a group against a solo artist. They have to be a group, and as a group, they're certainly the best hip hop group I think of all time. I would put Gang Starr probably number 2 if I had to make a list. I would put like NWA probably 3 or 4. You can't put like Fuji, Public Enemy. Oh, Public Enemy would probably be like my number 2 now that I think of it. But Boogie Down Productions would be there. It's just the way like I'm programmed. I can't I can't rank anymore. It seems weird to me. Like the gun to my head would be Nas, largely because he had a song where he was the gun called "I Gave You Power," right? Like he's a dope lyricist, and you have to give him respect. Illmatic is largely considered the best hip hop album of all time, and I happen to believe that's the correct assumption because it from top to bottom, and you have the significance of when it came out, like was it 91, 92, whatever it was. When it came out, was like once you got your copy, you were like it was like a movie. You put your headphones on, your Walkman or whatever the fuck you had, and you lie down, and I just listened to it, and I probably listened to it like 7 or 8 times. It was a fucking movie. He painted a picture, and I had never heard someone do that the way that he did it, with the style and delivery, and the way that he painted the picture was like nothing I'd ever heard. Like there were Rakims of the world, and they were like other storytellers. But Nas was a first of his kind, and I don't know if he's ever been duplicated. Isn't that crazy? That's all the best ones are. They're just totally standalone, talented rappers, right?
Yeah, I totally agree, because it is. And I think that, and again, and I put in the way you talk about Nas is the way I can talk about Method Man, right? Like, because that's my guy. And everybody's going to have their arguments here and there, and I respect them both, right? So I don't even want to have an argument about it, right? But
Yeah.
it's taste. For me, it's Method Man's voice. Like, there's just the uniqueness of Method Man just has always spoke to me. But yeah, it's weird though, because you have those guys who stand alone you can't touch, and I think Meth is one of them, Nas is one of them, I think Eminem's one of them. You know what I mean? There's never going to be another Eminem. There's going to be people.
It's funny always talking about Eminem, because we we're almost programmed to understand that there's a lot of Eminem critics out there. So I do this all the time. I want to be able to okay, well, no. Like, I preamble everything when I talk about Eminem, but straight up, let's do instead of best rappers, let's do characteristics of a rapper and who's the best at those things. He's clearly the best writer of all time.
Yeah,
it is not even close. The volume, the amount, his catalog is so big. The amount of rhymes that man has written that are not just like abundant, but just the quality of them and the structure behind them are just insane.
Did you ever hear the Akon story about Eminem?
I think I just heard it the other day as I watched a compilation of rappers talk about him, but go ahead.
I probably watched the same compilation the other day.
Probably.
So, so Akon was talking about how Eminem made him look at the business differently, and they were doing a track together, and Akon shows up at like 3 p.m. and Eminem's already there.
Oh, yeah.
And they start laying down the track, and at 5 o'clock, Eminem's like, okay, I'm going home. I'll see you tomorrow at 9 o'clock. He literally goes to the studio 9 to 5, takes his hour lunch at 1 o'clock, and then comes back, and 5 o'clock he packs it up. Like, he treats rap like it's his job. And I love that. That was so funny. I was like, that's an Eminem thing.
I think you must. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
I just think like if anybody's going to do that, it was probably going to be Eminem. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
But then it makes sense like that he would do that, because it's probably the only way that you can maintain a skill level, because it's it's not like singing. It really isn't. It's not like singing for a bunch of reasons. One is it's more unless you're like a punk rocker or something, or death metal guy or whatever, it's probably a lot more tiring. Just the vocal part alone. I'm not saying rockers don't like walk around and Mick Jagger the fuck out of everything sometimes, but but just on its own, it's really hard to do. But the way that like you have to also pay really close attention to the lyrics. Like, if you're an aging rocker, you can get by with other people writing the fucking songs for you, and and you do. And not that ghostwriting doesn't exist, but to a large extent it doesn't exist for a lot of the great ones. And it's tough to maintain. It's like exercising. And if you don't write rhymes and rap consistently, you start to lose your skill level. It starts to deplete the writing and the rhyming. And that's why you don't see a ton of Rakim shows, because he's not probably, well, maybe Rakim's the bad example, but you know what I'm saying? Like there's Big Daddy Kane. I don't think he's done shit in a long time. But if he maintained, he'd probably still be really dope. So Eminem might be the first one that I can think of. Jay-Z's probably actually in this category as well. As guys when they were like in their 40s and wrecking shit more than the young guys were as far as skill level goes. And I think that's just a testament to their hard work, right? Like,
no, I totally agree. And then there's some guys out there that you just wonder, like, what if? Like, Mace is always a guy to me. It's like, because he just gave it up, right?
I hate
like,
Mace.
You don't like Mace?
Not particularly, no.
Oh,
I thought he was one of those
guy.
monotone guys. Like, I just never liked this.
So what you'll start to see a trend with me is voice has a lot to do with my who hits my I like to listen. And Mace again is one of those voices that just resonate.
Really? That
with
surprises me. That surprises me a little bit.
Yeah, I'm a big voice guy because I find a lot of rappers can sound the same from a voice sounding. There might be different lyricists and how they flow, but their voices sound the same. And I always found like Mace. He was almost like the originator of mumble rap. You know what I mean? What they have today, which is just
you're not selling it.
No. But you know what I mean? Like just the way he had no punctuation on his words. Like everything kind of just mumbled off. Like he would be
Yeah.
rapping normal and it kind of mumble
So
off. I
you
don't know.
like that though?
I don't know, but there's something about his voice that always captured my attention. The same like Method Man. Like there's better rappers than Method Man. I can say that. You know what I mean? I think he's great, but there's better
But you
rappers
know,
than Method
there's
Man.
different rappers. Come on, Ray, start the revolution.
But when
come
you
on this
you
walk with me where we don't rank anything. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, what I'm saying, there's better rappers, but when you combine how well he can rap with the voice, that's why Method Man sits on that's why Method's the top of my list, right? For me,
Right.
because that's how it feel like if I had to, it would be. Mac 10 was another guy I loved his voice. You know what I mean?
Guru
Like
was like that for me.
Guru?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Guru from Gangstar. Like, I mean, and his songs again,
Yeah.
like he was a pretty good writer though. Like he you know, like X Girl to Next Girl, I think is one of the great like what would you call that? Like a love tragedy song, I guess, or something like that. Breakup song, whatever. You know, and but you know, he's also paired up with the greatest golden era producer, hands down, of all time, which is DJ Premier. So it's probably Guru probably owed a lot to Premier, but also, you know, like he went and did his own thing with Jazzmatazz. A lot of like real hip hop heads didn't like Jazzmatazz, but a lot of the grittier heads didn't like it because they felt that Guru kind of phoned in the lyrics. And to a certain extent, they were telling the truth there, but also he just wanted to have a different experience, right? Like he was working with like Wynton Marsalis and like Donald Byrd and all these amazing fucking jazz artists. So he wanted, I think, the instruments to be front and center. But I know what you mean. Like he had a song called "It's Mostly the Voice." You know, so yeah, I know exactly what you mean. There's a few unique cats like that. Like yeah, go ahead.
50. I'm actually not the biggest 50 Cent fan. You know what I mean? Like
neither.
I'm really not, but I love his voice. You know what I mean?
I like watching 50 Cent interviews more than I like listening to his music.
He's a smart cat. He really is. For a guy
I
who
love
thought
the
was
street
dumb
level kind of intelligence that he applies to like
to
business
business
and media. You know,
Yeah.
like I like that.
Well, and again, and see, that's the thing. Like, and I know when I bring up, I don't even know what his name is now, but I'll call him Puff Daddy. When I bring him up to people, especially real hip hop heads, I get the eye rolls, right? But I'm not talking about.
I just stopped myself.
No, but I'm not talking about Puff Daddy, the rapper or producer or whatever. But you know, Puff was really one of the first guys from the hip hop culture to turn it into a billion-dollar business. You know what I mean? Like the Sean John line and all this and that, and understood where to make it. And a lot of guys,
he was the second. Russell Simmons was the first.
Yes, Russell Simmons was number one. I'm not a big Russell Simmons fan, so I'm not a big Puff Daddy
Def
fan
Jam,
either.
man, you got to hand it. I mean, Public Enemy, Run DMC, and LL Cool J is a pretty good fucking lineup. You know?
No, it is, but it's. You know, but I always respected Puff Daddy because he made money from the hip hop culture. You know what I mean? Like he was a guy that was like, I'm not just going to be here for my shitty rhymes and surrounding myself with big names like you know, Biggie. He's like, I'm going to make money off it as well. So I always had a respect level for him.
Well, also once he got Pac out of the way, you know.
Yes. Nothing to do with it.
It's so funny. Like, actually, there's a good series about that, and it's from the perspective of the detective who had other problems and stuff. But I can't remember how many episodes it is, but it's a really interesting series because it does take a lot of the stuff that did happen in real life and kind of make you wonder. You know, there's yeah, it's a weird. Like, I think the person I hate most in hip hop history is probably Suge Knight.
Yeah.
Like honestly, like I know that he could beat me up, right?
Beat you up. He'll hang you from a window.
Out of the way. I'm pretty sure Suge Knight could beat me up even to this day, even if he's in his fake wheelchair as he cries.
If you want to hear the greatest story in the world, listen to Vanilla Ice telling the story of Suge Knight hanging him over a railing over at a hotel. It's the greatest story in the world. He said it wasn't
true, I thought.
No, he came out and talked about it. He said yeah,
wow.
You know, he told the story. It's one of the greatest stories I've ever heard.
And then he had to give him like $1 million or something, didn't he?
Or something, or rights to song. I can't remember what it was, but just it's.
You know what? Here's the thing. And this is interesting actually because there were hardly any white rappers back then. There was like 3 or 4, right? Yeah. And they were like Everlast. Everlast was like doing his thing with Ice-T's Rhyme Syndicate in like 1987, I think. That song. Fuck Everyone. Do you remember that song?
Yeah.
And the rhythm. Talking about the rhythm. And anyways, it's kind of cheesy now. It doesn't really stand the test of time. There are some good lyrics in Fuck Everyone. I got Tipper Gore protesting my lyrics. Fuck that bitch. I don't need a clearance. See, that sounded like a good lyric to me at the time, but I wouldn't say that anymore, right? Like, it's an interesting thing. But then there was just like MC Search, who I liked in Third Base, but then on a personal level, we did this business thing once, and I don't like him at all
Oh.
as a human being. But he ripped me off $5,000. He was a rep at a liquor company. And I approached him to get a sponsorship. It's supposed to be a $10,000 cash sponsorship for this thing in Miami. And he gave me $5,000, and I thought it was like, oh wow, I got $5,000 to put towards my event or whatever. And then I found out 3 months later at my event that this other rep comes up to me like, so we you did a lot for the $10,000 we gave you. I was like, you fucking
motherfucker,
fucking bastard, took my fucking. Like, and he probably got like a bonus on their end. Actually, no, probably not. They're giving money away, so but he's making his salary. Yeah. He just took my money, Like, I don't know, he was an asshole. And then and who are the other white rappers? Then it's like Vanilla Ice, right? And then if you're a white rapper like me, you had to live in that black hole between Vanilla Ice and Eminem, right? Because everyone made fun of white rappers after that. But here's the thing.
Especially when House of Pain got big.
Yes. And there were a few exceptions, obviously. But the whole Vanilla Ice thing, what people may not realize is that when Ice Ice Baby came out, the ghetto was rocking that song. They were playing that song. They were remixing the fuck out of that song and playing it on all these underground radio stations, like before it really hit the radio and after it blew up. And then when the media and the crowd at large found out that he was white, people started to get turned off a little bit. It was just the kids that really kind of liked him. And then the hip hop heads took their hands off them. But make no mistake, there's hip hop heads that are like die in the wool, backpack on as tight as possible until your arms are blue, purists that were like bumping Ice Ice Baby to remixes and loving the fuck out of it before he became whack or whatever. So,
and then he started recording metal albums when he was in his 40s.
Yeah. I only like that one song actually. I didn't like anything else he put out. I hated when he danced. I hated his hair. And I became a hater rather quickly because I was a white rapper and I fucking just that guy's gonna rap. Well, hey Vanilla Ice, you're gonna rap. Like, I have heard that 1,000 times. Like, and it was a hard life. He probably made you a better writer.
He was in Ninja Turtles 2, Secret of the Ooze.
Yeah, I know.
Did you like Scarface?
He did the fucking Running Man with the turtles.
He did.
Turtles, go! Right?
Did you like Scarface?
I did. Yeah, I did.
So he's a guy that
I don't know his album. Like, I don't know his track listings by heart and everything. But I like his voice too. He's got another one of those voices.
He does again, and again, you're starting to see the trend. It's just the guys with the unique voices. Even the women, like, again, I'm a big Missy Elliott fan. You know what I mean? It's a very unique voice, right? Yeah. That comes out, and I would also argue that Lauryn Hill had a unique voice as well. So I was a big Lauryn Hill fan. So it's
we should do something like this more often, because I know a lot of guys that live in areas where they don't really have anyone to talk to. Talking about all their friends are like, dude, the people that I know here are country music and rock. And by the way, I loved alternative music growing up. I loved Nirvana and I loved all that shit as well. So I wasn't just exclusive, but yeah. I know you got a hard out, but
have me back.
So much
I'd love to come
talk short notice as well.
Love to come talk more hip hop and rap with you. We only scratched the start. We talked very mainstream. We can get a little bit deeper the next time.
Oh, dude, we can go. We can go places, Ray. We can do this.
We can do it.
All right, buddy. Ray Routh, who's got next podcast. I appreciate your time, buddy. Thanks very much.
Thanks, buddy. Take it easy.
That was fun, guys. That was fun. I hate when a guest cancels and I can't fill the slot. That's why you guys see oh no, Blackballed tonight. It's Monday or Tuesday. Sometimes I'll be I'll put out the promo at 6:30, and then 7:45. It's oh yeah, I can't. I have this dinner, and it's always, by the way, the names that aren't that big. Go figure. The smaller the name, the more the cancellation. I guess, which is a sort of sign of unprofessionalism. Tomorrow is the triumphant return of Casual Fridays. I will be on edibles. I will not be on mushrooms. And yeah, I'm gonna do. But I think what I'm gonna do is shrooms once a month. I'll do my shrooms reset, on a casual Friday, once a month. So look out for that, brain cells. And then that's it. Sam G's going to be on next week, Monday or Tuesday. And we'll see you tomorrow on Casual Friday. We'll see you next time on Blackball. Thanks.
Blackball. Blackball. Blackball.